Well, welcome back to continue the discussion. After reading Exodus chapter 6, I want to slow down and press into something of a deeper cultural and theological elements that make this chapter such a powerful turning point. It might not seem like the most dramatic section at first glance. No plagues, no burning bush, no parted seas. But what God is doing here is foundational. He is revealing his name, renewing his covenant, and reframing Israel's suffering in light of their coming redemption. And that's worth sitting with. Let's begin with God's name in verse 2. I am the Lord. That phrase in Hebrew is Ani Yahweh. We've seen the divine name Yahweh before in Genesis, but here it's given a new emphasis. God explains that he appeared to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob as El Shaddai, but his name Yahweh was not known. The Hebrew word used here for known is nodati, which implies more than recognition. It suggests relational experience. God is saying, I'm about to reveal myself in a deeper, more personal way than I ever have before. This isn't just about semantics. In the ancient Near Eastern mindset, a name carried weight, authority, and access. For God to give Moses his covenantal name and tie it to the act of deliverance is to say, you will know me not by what I say, but by what I do. There's something incredibly tender about that. God isn't introducing himself with abstract theology. He's saying, watch me act. You'll understand who I am by how I move on your behalf. That feels so personal, so full of love. And for those of us who ever doubt God's presence in hard times, it's a gentle but firm reminder. Our deliverance often begins with a deeper revelation of who he is. Another striking element is the structure of verses 6 through 8. What scholars call the sevenfold will. These 7 declarations of God's intent mirror the structure of covenant language found in ancient treaties. Each phrase builds on the last. I will bring you out, I will deliver you, I will redeem you, I will take you as my people. I will be your God. I will bring you to the land. I will give it to you as a possession. This isn't casual encouragement. It's covenantal language, rooted in loyalty, justice, and relationship. In a world where gods were thought to be distant or fickle, Yahweh is offering a binding, intimate commitment. He isn't just freeing Israel from slavery, he's claiming them as his own. Now, culturally, the concept of redemption in verses 6 is worth digging into. The Hebrew verb galal means to redeem, to reclaim, to act as kinsman redeemer. This was more than an economic or spiritual idea. It was a social responsibility in Israelite society. A Gaal was someone, usually a close male relative, who would intervene to rescue a family member in trouble, whether from slavery, poverty, or injustice. The classic example is Boaz in the book of Ruth. So when God says, I will redeem you, he's saying, I will step into the family role. I will act as your own flesh and blood to bring you home. That's a profound theological statement. It means that Israel's suffering is not being watched from afar. It's being carried by a God who considers himself bound to them by kinship. And I can't help but hear echoes of Jesus in this. How he stepped into our condition to redeem us as one of us. That's not a stretch. The theological thread of kinsman, redeemer runs through Exodus to the cross. Redemption is always costly, always personal, and always rooted in love. There's also this raw human moment in verse 9. Moses delivers God's words to the people, but they did not listen to him because their broken spirit and harsh slavery. The Hebrew phrase kotzer ranch is worth pausing on. It means shortness of spirit, like the feeling of gasping for air. Their trauma was so great that they couldn't take in hope. That's such a deeply human detail. How often do we, in our suffering, tune out the very encouragement we need because we're just trying to survive the day? And how patient is God knowing this and yet still speaking? He doesn't shame them. He doesn't rush them. He keeps revealing, keeps pursuing, keeps promising. Moses, too, is still struggling. He says again that he has uncircumcised lips. This is one of those phrases that feels strange in English, but is loaded in Hebrew. In Exodus, uncircumcised often means unready or unfit. Moses isn't just saying that he stutters. He's saying, I'm not worthy to speak for you. But again, God doesn't disqualify him. He doesn't need perfect lips. He needs willing ones. This gives us a powerful theology of calling. In Exodus, leadership is born not from charisma, but from obedience, not from eloquence, but from faithfulness. And that's good news for all of us. If God used Moses, not in spite of his limitations, but through them, then none of us are beyond his ability to use for something beautiful. Let's talk briefly about genealogy. Why now? Why pause the action for a list of names? In the ancient world, genealogy wasn't filler. It was identity. In fact, some scholars argue that the genealogy here serves to legitimize the rise of the priesthood through Aaron and the Levites. It's like a divine credential, showing that Moses and Aaron aren't just random prophets. They are deeply rooted in the sacred history of God's people. It's also a subtle reminder that Israel isn't just a crowd. It's a family, a covenant people, connected by blood and promise. This chapter ends the same way it began, with Moses feeling unworthy, nothing changed outwardly, but everything changing internally, because God is moving from the silence of slavery to the thunder of deliverance. It begins not with plagues or power, but with the words, I am the Lord. And those words still speak today. So what does this mean for us? For me, I'm struck by the patience of God, how he meets people in discouragement, how he speaks again even when they don't listen for the first time, how he keeps showing up for Moses, not because Moses is brave or bold, but because Moses is honest and open. That reminds me that God doesn't just call us when we're strong. He calls us when we're weak, because the strength is made perfect there. And I think about the people of Israel so broken, they couldn't even lift their heads. And yet God never sees them as stuck. He sees them as his. That means that when I feel worn down, exhausted, or hopeless, he doesn't write me off. He draws closer. So maybe the question this chapter invites us to ask is, do I know God as El Shaddai? Powerful, yes, but still distant. Or am I beginning to know him as Yahweh, the God who shows up, who speaks into my broken places, who redeems like a family member reclaiming their own? This chapter may not have big miracles, but it is full of quiet glory, identity, promise, relational redemption. It lays the foundation for everything that follows in the story of Exodus. And honestly, it reminds me that what kind of God we walk with today. If any of that resonated with you, or if something else stood out, I'd love to hear your insights in the comments. We're not just studying this book, we're walking through it together, piece by piece. Thanks for staying with me in this deeper dive. I love walking this journey with you. Maybe you know today that you are not forgotten, not overlooked, and not too broken to be heard by God. You are his. He is already working your deliverance. Well, we'll see you in the next chapter tomorrow in Exodus chapter, I guess it's 7. So thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you tomorrow.